Malik, it's me. Your father. The voice on the other end was weak, trembling. Your mother is very ill. She doesn't have much time. Malik's grip on the phone tightened, but his voice remained cold. Baba, I'm busy. Can't the doctors there take care of her? Silence answered him, but he didn't wait for a reply. I'll send money, Baba, but I can't leave everything to come to that. Placed. Malik ended the call and leaned back in his leather office chair. He stared out at the city skyline, a view that had become his pride. He didn't want to think about his old life, that small, dusty village where he'd grown up with parents who had sacrificed everything for him. It wasn't who he was anymore. Malik had been born into a world of struggle. His parents, Amina and Idris, were hardworking but poor. His father farmed a small piece of land, barely earning enough to put food on the table, while his mother took on odd sewing jobs to make ends meet. Yet, despite their circumstances, they never complained. Their lives revolved around Malik, their only child, their pride and joy. Malik was born into a world of scarcity, but he never felt poor. His parents, Amina and Idris, had little to give in terms of material wealth, but their love for their only son was boundless. They lived in a small, one-room house with a leaky roof and creaking walls. The wooden floor was patched with scraps of cloth to keep out the cold during harsh winters, and the only light in the evenings came from a kerosene lamp. Yet, despite these hardships, their home was filled with laughter and hope, because Malik was at the center of it all. Amina would often say, "This house may be small, but the dreams we have for you are bigger than the sky." Idris worked tirelessly on a small plot of land they had inherited from his father. The land was rocky and barren, yielding barely enough crops to feed the family, let alone sell for profit. Still, he labored from sunrise to sunset, his hands calloused and his back bent, determined to give his son a better life. When Malik turned 6, Idris decided to enroll him in the village school, a small building with crumbling walls and a dirt floor. The teacher, a kind man named Mr. Hassan, quickly noticed Malik's sharp mind and eagerness to learn. "Your boy is special," he told Idris one day. "He could go far, but he'll need more than what this school can give." Idris shared the news with Amina that evening as they sat on the floor, eating a simple meal of lentils and bread. Her tired face lit up with hope. "If he has a chance to leave this village and make something of himself, we must do whatever it takes." But they didn't have the money to send Malik to a better school. So, they began making sacrifices. Idris sold their family's only piece of land, the very land his ancestors had toiled on for generations. "Amina," he said as he handed over the deed to the buyer, "it's just land. Malik's future is worth more than any soil." The money was enough to cover Malik's admission to a school in the nearest city, but not much else. To pay for his textbooks, uniforms, and other expenses, Amina began taking on extra sewing jobs. She worked late into the night by the dim light of the kerosene lamp, her fingers blistered from stitching. When Malik noticed her exhaustion, he asked, "Mama, why don't you rest?" She smiled, brushing his hair gently. "I'll rest when you've reached the stars." When Malik was 10, he fell ill with a severe fever. The nearest clinic was miles away, and they couldn't afford the cost of treatment. Amina stayed by his side, soaking cloths in cold water to cool his burning forehead, while Idris sold his only pair of good shoes to buy medicine. "You didn't have to do that, Baba," Malik said weakly when he learned what his father had done. Idris shook his head. "What use are shoes to me if I can't see my son grow up healthy and strong?" Moments like these shaped Malik's childhood, though he didn't fully understand the extent of his parents' sacrifices at the time. When Malik turned 16, he earned a scholarship to a prestigious boarding school in the city. The scholarship covered his tuition, but not his living expenses. Idris and Amina, proud beyond words, decided to sell their few remaining valuables: a gold bracelet that had belonged to Amina's mother and a rusted bicycle Idris used to get to the market. On the day Malik left for the city, Amina packed a small bundle of food for him, homemade bread and dried fruits. As she handed it to him, tears streamed down her face. "Malik, no matter how far you go, remember this: everything we've done is because we believe in you." Don't forget where you came from, my son. Idris hugged him tightly, whispering, "Make us proud, Malik. Make it all worth it." In the city, Malik thrived. He excelled in his studies and eventually went on to university, winning accolades and scholarships. But as he rose higher, the calls home became less frequent. The stories of his parents' struggles, once a source of inspiration, began to feel like a weight he didn't want to carry. He sent money occasionally, but he avoided their requests to visit, telling himself he was too busy building his future. He didn't know that Amina and Idris kept every letter and photo he sent, displaying them proudly in their small home. "Our Malik is a big man now," Idris would tell the neighbors, though his voice always carried a trace of longing. And Amina, every night before she slept, would whisper a prayer for her son. May he always have what he needs, and may he never forget those who love him. Malik did study hard. He excelled in school, earning scholarships, and eventually landing a job in a major corporation. He worked his way up, building a business empire that made him a household name. But as his wealth grew, so did his distance from his roots. Malik stopped calling home as often. The village became an embarrassment to him, a relic of a life he wanted to forget. When his parents called to ask how he was, he would answer briefly, avoiding questions about when he might visit. "I can't go back there," he told himself. "I've worked too hard to be dragged down by the past." The call from his father about his mother's illness came at the worst possible time, or so he thought. He was finalizing a major deal, one that would cement his status as one of the most powerful men in the country. He didn't have time for distractions. "Baba, I'll send money," he said. "Take her to a good hospital." "Your mother doesn't want money, Malik," Idris replied, his voice cracking. "She wants you." But Malik refused. He couldn't imagine leaving his polished world to return to the dusty streets of his childhood. "She'll understand," he muttered after hanging up. But deep down, he knew she wouldn't. A week later, the second call came. This time, Idris's voice was hollow. "Your mother is gone." The words hit Malik like a blow, but he quickly pushed the emotion aside. He went to the funeral out of obligation, staying just long enough to watch her lowered into the ground. The villagers looked at him with a mix of awe and sorrow, whispering among themselves about how much he had changed. Malik ignored them. Years passed, and Malik's wealth grew. He married and had 2 children, Noah and Layla. He gave them everything he hadn't had as a child: luxury, comfort, and the best education money could buy. But despite his efforts, something was missing. Malik's children, Noah and Layla, grew up in a world of privilege. They had everything their father hadn't: luxury, comfort, and the best education money could buy. But with that privilege came a sense of entitlement that Malik refused to acknowledge. Noah was charismatic but reckless. He had inherited his father's ambition but lacked his discipline. By the time he was in his early 20s, he was already involved in shady business dealings, using the family name to secure quick profits. Malik, blinded by pride, ignored the warning signs. Layla, on the other hand, was quiet and reserved. She had once been Malik's shadow, following him everywhere as a child. But as she grew older, she became distant, retreating into a world of social media and superficial friendships. Malik dismissed her behavior as teenage rebellion, never stopping to ask what was wrong. "They don't understand the value of hard work," he often grumbled to his wife. Years later, his carefully built life began to crumble. Malik's son, Noah, fell into shady business practices to fund his lavish lifestyle, ultimately causing a financial scandal that bankrupted the family's business. He had been siphoning money from Malik's company to fund his extravagant lifestyle. A risky investment went wrong, and the company was left with millions in debt. At the same time, Layla, who had always been quiet and withdrawn, fell into a dangerous and abusive relationship with a controlling partner. Malik had been so consumed with his work that he hadn't noticed her struggles or her cries for help. One night, Layla was hospitalized after an incident with her partner. Malik, shattered by the sight of his bruised and broken daughter, finally realized how disconnected he had become from his family. Shortly after, The final blow came when Noah, desperate to escape the fallout, got into a car accident while driving under the influence. Malik rushed to the hospital, his heart pounding as he prayed for his son's survival. When he arrived, the doctor's words hit him like a hammer. He's stable, but his injuries are severe. He may never walk again. Malik sat by Noah's hospital bed, staring at his unconscious son. He thought of all the moments he had missed, all the lessons he had failed to teach. He had given his children wealth but no foundation, comfort but no values. And now, he was paying the price. For weeks, Malik wandered through his empty mansion, haunted by memories of his parents. He thought of his mother's words. "One day, you'll be a great man. And when you are, don't forget where you came from." He had forgotten, and now he was alone, his empire in ruins, his family broken. Finally, with nothing left to lose, Malik returned to the village he had once shunned. The house where he had grown up was still standing, though it was worn and empty. As he stepped inside, memories flooded back, his father's laughter, his mother's gentle hands sewing late into the night. He sank to the floor, sobbing for the first time in years. Determined to rebuild his life, Malik stayed in the village, using his resources to help the community. He established a school in his parents' honor and began repairing the relationships with his children. Noah, now wheelchair-bound, joined Malik in mentoring the youth, while Layla worked to support women in the village, using her experience to help others escape abusive situations. Through his pain and loss, Malik finally understood the value of family, humility, and the roots he had once abandoned. Though Malik could never undo the pain he had caused, he found solace in honoring his parents' legacy. And as he walked through the fields his father had once tilled, he felt his mother's voice in the wind, soft but steady. "You'll remember where you came from before it's too late."